Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got a great show for you today. As you can see, Billy Bob is not on the set, and I got another gentleman here, and you'll understand why one is gone and the other is here in just a moment. I got a very special guest I'll introduce to you. But I want to first of all ask you, did you have yourself a great weekend? I hope you had a blessed Thanksgiving. It was wonderful for me. I had a house. I violated every rule in New York and in Illinois, Chicago, California. We had about 20 people over, and mostly family, a few friends, grandkids. It was great. I did get to go fishing, and if I look a little different now, it's because on Saturday I turned the big 6-0. I'm 60 years old, so I'm actually a year older now than I was the last time you guys saw me. But we're going to get into the show in just a minute. But I got to start out, as I always do, with our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited, otherwise known as BDU. No matter where you're watching the show, whether it's live on Facebook and YouTube, spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks on YouTube. Scroll above the show, look above the show, and you'll see a description of the show. There's a link to our sponsor there. Big Daddy Unlimited is literally your Second Amendment headquarters, because you get factory direct pricing on guns, ammunition, tactical gear, swag, thousands of items delivered directly to your door. And I call them your Second Amendment headquarters because not only do they have items, but as you will see in the coming days and weeks, Big Daddy Unlimited is going to be your go-to place to actually defend your Second Amendment rights, and we'll expand on that as the days and weeks follow. But I got a great guest here for you. He is a bass fisherman extraordinaire, and we're going to talk about that. But that is why Billy Bob, he didn't want no part of a professional bass fisherman, because he's already ready. He sees him over there in the corner, and he's kind of hiding over there. Billy Bob is pretty brave, but when it comes to this gentleman, Sig Taylor is our guest today. And I wanted him on the show for multiple reasons, but one of the main ones, and I'm actually going to let him talk in just a moment, is that he really epitomizes the sense of a rugged individualist, and he'll expand on that in just a minute. But as you know, I always tell you, our Constitution is literally what is at stake, election, all of that. And we're going to have election coverage, more on that tomorrow, but we're going to talk politics, we're going to talk Donald Trump, but our Constitution was founded by rugged individualists, for rugged individualists. A lot of people don't seem to understand this, but the Constitution is not to empower government. It is to protect the individual from the overreach of government. And I can tell you what I'm learning about Mr. Taylor here is that he is the very epitome that this country was founded on. And he has taken advantage, which you should too, and he's going to explain some of that in just a moment, to actually have quite a high level of lifestyle, travel the world, all of that stuff, taking advantage of the freedoms that, quite frankly, we seem to be taking for granted. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Sig Taylor, and he's going to kind of tell us about himself, and then we'll get into some specific topics. Take it away, Sig.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's great to be here, John. And thank you, too. So I'd like to start before I was born. My parents came from Germany. They immigrated here, and they came here for freedom. And they instilled it in us kids. We grew up in the country in the foothills of California, and there we just ran. We had rivers, and we went fishing. I was able to get a gun, start shooting. We talked about this before the show started. We knew the safety of a gun. I did take a course. I remember as a young kid to get my hunter's license, but we just loved the outdoors. And my parents, they left, and I would go many times back to Germany because my relatives were still over there. And by the way, my name is Siegfried, so how German is that? Just call me Sig, though, please. And
you're not the guy from Vegas.
Yeah,
exactly.
The Lions and all, right? Well, no, I don't have a Roy. Okay. I do have a Deidrian, though, and she's German too. So because her parents came over too from Germany. So. And by the way, we met in California, so we're kind of first generation here, and that means a lot to us. But I would go back to Germany a lot to visit my relatives, and my relatives mainly lived in West Berlin. At that point, it was West Berlin. Then you had East Berlin, and that was all communist East Germany. And I saw communism firsthand. It wasn't pretty. There was times when I would cross over the border into East Germany, and it was like going from color picture to black and white. And it was spooky. And knowing that I was American felt good because they couldn't keep me. And there's also times that I'd walk along the Berlin Wall and I would see graves every so often. And I was told many a times that's when somebody had tried to escape. They made it to the freedom side, West Berlin, and they still shot them and killed them. And so it rang home, and I never thought I would say this, but I see that if we don't take charge, and by the way, thank you for calling me a rugged individualist, that's kind of an honor because...
Kind of takes one to know one.
Exactly. Because it is we the people. It's not we the government. And
it's becoming we the sheeple, I think, sometimes. That's what I'm scared of.
Absolutely. And, I think the first thing that I've done ever since I was small is I've taken self-responsibility for everything that has happened to me in my life. And if something goes wrong, it's probably my fault, and I got to turn around and make those changes. And thank God that I'm able to do that in a country like this. So, I grew up in California, but I started seeing things change about 15 years ago, probably. And my wife and I started just kind of feeling a little bit different. We moved further into the country. I lived on Clear Lake, which, if you're familiar with Bassmaster, they just voted Clear Lake, California, the best bass lake for the decade. And I fished professionally.
Nobody in Florida voted that way.
No.
It's a rigged election.
No.
We claim Bassmaster down
But it's
here.
so much fun because I do tease a lot of my friends in California because the bass grow big, and we can get into that some other time, why the bass get so big in California. But it's not because that they take care of the lakes. It's just because there's a lot of trout planted in those lakes, and those bass love trout. But that's another story.
I thought it was Arnold Schwarzenegger pumping steroids in him. You sure that's not the case?
That might be, that those trout are fed antibiotics. But anyway, but we started to see a difference. About 2012, I started to see a few of my friends leave to Arizona, Nevada. And my brother at the same time had lived in Illinois, had just moved to St. Augustine. And so we'd come to visit them a lot. And we started to kind of go, wow, we kind of like Florida. And by the way, the bass in California are Florida strain bass, okay? And the reason that the bass don't get so big here is because the waters are so shallow here, and during the summertime it stresses them out. That's from the FWC. I've been calling them.
Okay.
Yes. The deepest lake is Kingsley Lake, which is about 60 foot, and that's a natural sinkhole.
Yeah, it's not too far from Hawthorne.
Exactly.
It almost looks like a crater.
It is a crater.
Like a meteorite hit it. If you look at the...
they told me it's a sinkhole, but it looks like a meteor.
Yeah, if you look at like a drone footage of it,
yes.
It looks like a meteor hole. It's like perfectly round.
So that's a place I'm going to be going fishing for because I am going to catch some of those large Florida strain bass. But so we started to slowly see things happening. We started making plans. I had multiple businesses in California. I started to close them down in 2014, 2015. By 2016, we were pretty much, it takes a while to just kind of pick up roots and leave. But I'm glad we chose where we did. We were supposed to end up in St. Augustine area.
Beautiful place, by the way.
It is beautiful, but we ended up in an even better place. I always let God put me in places, and he put us in a small little community called Navarre, Florida, which is by Pensacola. Beautiful beaches.
Panhandle, by the way.
The Panhandle.
Trump country.
They absolutely. They call it Lower Alabama. Did you know that? Have you heard that phrase?
Yeah. Well, they call that area the Redneck Riviera.
Redneck Riviera, Lower Alabama, and I fit right in. And I'll tell you how I fit in. That I went to take a look at the area, and we spent the night, and there was a place called Flounders. We went there. There's a couple fishing guides there talking about catching flounders. That time of year is November. And the fishing guide got up and he goes, we like to gig flounder this time of year, and we got 3 gigs here. We got a small gig, a medium gig, and a large gig. And I'll tell you right now, the large gig works better than the small gig. And I looked at my brother who was with me, and I said, I'm going to fit right in here.
There you go.
So that's how we ended up here. We ended up here for the freedom. California has the highest income taxes. Florida has zero state income taxes.
That brings me to a point, because I can tell you a lot of Floridians right now that are watching this are getting nervous because you're from California. Californians typically invade like Texas, Arizona, maybe Oregon,
Nevada.
Washington, and Nevada, and they always seem to bring their politics with them. In Florida, and I'm not knocking you New Yorkers and you know, people from Chicago, but a lot of times people will move down here from New York and they'll bring the very politics they're running away from. One of the things I asked before I even put Sig on the show, I said, you know, you're not bringing your politics that people run from California with you. And he explained that he was a Ronald Reagan Republican, which is the first president I ever actually voted for I was a Democrat. So I've told people that explains. But tell us a little.
You used to be a Democrat?
Yeah, oh yeah, man. I was. Florida was all. Yeah, I came to my senses. Like I say, I voted for Reagan, the first person I ever voted for. And but yeah, I've been honest with people. I was drinking the Kool-Aid for a long time. I never really fit in with the Democratic Party, and but this is one of the most liberal places. It looks like a blue lake up here, by the way. I don't know if you've noticed that, but if you look at the red county map, blue map of Florida, you're sitting in a total blue wave here in Alachua County. There's not a whole lot of us around, but those that are rugged individuals. So tell us about how you're not bringing, what politics are you bringing here?
Well, you know what's interesting is my parents never really talked about politics. I did vote for Ronald Reagan. And it's crazy, but I think I was just born conservative, period. And I don't know how that works, but I believe it was 1978, we had a proposition in California called Proposition 13. And I didn't think about it, but I still have that newspaper. I used to, back in the day, we had newspapers, and they would deliver them to the houses, and I actually did that. I had 2 paper routes. My parents were so poor that we had to.
That's back when we were smarter than the phones. You had to dial them like that.
Exactly.
Now everybody's like this.
So they had a Proposition 13 in California, which the taxes for homes were getting out of control, and they limited the taxes that California could charge for that. And Proposition 13 won. I still have that newspaper. I wasn't able to vote, but at that point, I knew I didn't like taxes. And it was great. I still have that newspaper. I wish I would have brought it. Maybe the next show I'll bring that. But at that point, I look back now all these years, and I was always very anti-tax. So I would have, the founders of our country, the things that, if you understand that what they had to do to give us the freedoms as we had today, that we have today, I just don't want to let them down. That's the reason we left the king. We don't need any more kings.
I hear you. We don't want to be. That's what I've been telling y'all for the last few weeks. We have a decision to make here in this country. Do we want to be subjects of the realm? Because that's what Biden is bringing. God help us if he actually makes it to the presidency. He's bringing us the realm. It'll be the realm, and we'll be subjects of. We have to make a decision. Are we going to be subjects of the realm, or are we going to be citizens of a republic, rugged individualists? Like you see here, is that what we have? Are old gray-haired folks like me going to die out and that go away? That's really what's at question here, which, Sig, is one of the reasons, if you hear at the top of the show, battling ignorance and apathy, because I kind of see myself, and I see you in the same way, that I believe that our generation is the last bridge, if you will, to the kids that are just looking at the smartphones. Yeah. And if we don't impart the knowledge, because Reagan said it very eloquently, better than I could, that it's not passed in the bloodstream. We have to basically teach it. And that's one of my main motivations for doing the show, is to bring that spirit of rugged individuals, because I can tell you, I don't want to be a subject of the realm.
No, I don't either. I don't. And we have to be very careful. Like I said, we have to take self-responsibility first, all right? And then do not be afraid to make a stand. That's what.
But you said something a minute ago that I wanted to kind of chime in on, because it really is hitting me when you talked about like your parents weren't political. See, mine were just the opposite, especially my dad, because he was in politics and all that. So I grew up with someone that was always involved in politics. So it's a little bit, I realize I'm a political junkie. But, you know, in fishing, I've found this. And now that I'm really because as I said earlier, when it came to the Second Amendment, I never gave it a second thought growing up because guns were just part of life. Like I told you before the show, it was like having a pair of pliers or a
Yes.
tool. I never thought that I had to justify it or defend it or try to keep government from taking it from me. It was just a way of life. But what I'm starting to learn since I've been involved with like Big Daddy Unlimited is that a lot of people that are hardcore Second Amendment people, they're basically gun enthusiasts. It's like a hobby and a lifestyle. They're not very political. And a lot of fishermen who love fishing aren't that political. In fact, I'll get on the boat and they'll say, well, I don't really want to talk about politics. But part of the awakening we need to have is that we better pay attention to politics because they're going to take our very freedoms. The Second Amendment is going to be gone. And a lot of fishermen don't understand this, that the people that are making the rules, they actually don't want us to fish. So if they have their way, we're going to lose our right, believe it or not, to even fish. So kind of talk, have you seen apathy within segments of people that actually need to get energized?
Yeah, I'll give you a quick example. Again, I lived on Clear Lake, California, and that is a natural lake, by the way, and it's the largest natural lake in California. And bass were introduced, oh my gosh, 100 years plus ago there. They actually want to eradicate the bass out of Clear Lake. They want to get rid of them.
They're invasive Floridian species.
Exactly. And they'll do everything they can. They tried to pass a tax. It was called Save the Lake tax. Now, this is a natural lake. Okay, I'm a conservationist.
A tax is always a solution.
Yeah,
for the left,
taxes,
by the
yeah.
way.
They tried to. And I was the lone person to fight that. Again, I went against the county because, well, again, the tax is supposed to save the lake, right? And who doesn't want to save the lake? Well, what they were trying to do with the Sierra Club, the county, they were trying to lock the lake. It's a natural lake. They have free ramps there. And I actually got into it with the Sierra Club representative. If you don't know who Sierra Club is, they're a communist organization. It's that simple, okay? And I got into it. But what happened was I had people come from behind me and say, hey, I'm really supporting you, Sig, but I can't do nothing because my livelihood depends on it. And what I mean by that is that we have some quagga mussels, invasive species that they didn't want into Clear Lake, which can't grow there anyway, even if it's tried. But what they would do is that you would have to pay get a sticker, a tax to go fish the lake, and that tax would be $15. Well, the bait stores would get a percentage of that. You see how they get hooked into government?
They get you addicted to it like heroin.
Get you heroin, get you addicted to government. But the bait stores didn't want this tax because, again, we want fishermen to come. But the county already let us know many years that we don't want fishermen. We want water skiers, which I have nothing against water skiing. We want the kayakers and the naturalists who want to kayak and canoe around, which I don't have anything against that either, but they want the boats off with the motors.
Well,
so let me just finish.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So one of the bait stores allowed me to put a sign up there that said no to this proposition, this measure to raise taxes. They had somebody, I got the call from the bait store saying, Sig, we need to take the sign down. The county just came and threatened us, and that makes us a lot of money, those stickers that we sell, to take it away. Well, that's against the law. That's government overreach. I went in and fought it and found out just how corrupt government can be on a local level even, and realized and said to myself, and by the way, because I fought it, I was the lone voice, we defeated it 3 times in a row. We never had that half-a-cent sales tax increase go in because where I lived, it was one of the poorest counties in the state of California. So anyway.
Well, you've seems like you and I are kindred spirits, because one of the things I tell people all the time is it's always been about individuals. Groups, yeah, they're powerful, but they're always started by an individual, and it's always come back to the American people to fight for freedom one way or another, and it never more than now, because what you were talking about being like intimidated by government, the same thing been happening here. I mean, I was with a group of people that fought a sales tax here some years ago, and we were coming from different circles. that we weren't successful in fighting the tax, but we did take it to the legislature because the county government was using taxpayer money to promote the tax. So we actually got a state law passed that said that governments can't use taxpayer money to pay the tax. Now, I mean, to promote the tax. Now, they've gotten around it through education. But if you look at what's happening right now in real time, people that work for President Trump, let alone his supporters getting beaten in the head just for wearing a MAGA hat, but people who work for the president are now being threatened directly with, hey, you're not going to work again. You're not going to have a job. The president was interviewed. I don't know if you saw it, but he was interviewed yesterday by that Maria Bartiromo, and now she's being called everything but a child of God because she didn't just beat him over the head. She just asked him questions and let him talk. But if you're a Trump supporter and let alone actually work for the president, you're being attacked, which should not be happening in this great country.
No, that's full out blown socialism, fascism, and remember, it's not President Trump that they hate. It's me that they hate.
That's what I tell them. There's one person they fear more than Trump, and that's you.
Exactly.
That put him in there.
Absolutely.
You talked a little bit about people. We talked a little bit about apathy.
Yes.
How do we overcome that? Because like in this Georgia race coming up,
yes,
with we can't. I don't have a vote in it, but there are a lot of people who are saying, well, my vote's not going to matter, so I'm just going to pack it up and go home. Some of that's put out by the left, so don't fall for it. But some of it's real. And so I guess a two-part question. How do you get people not to give up that have been in the fight? And how do you get people who may just want to be like rugged individuals do? They just want to live their life, their family. They don't want to deal with this. But how do we make them understand that if they don't get energized now, that it's going to come for them? And even the water skiers, yeah, they might get the bass fishermen off, but then once they got them off, they're going to come for the water skiers too, because they don't want you out there, burning, unless you got maybe a windmill behind you. But talk about that, the combination of giving up, people are frustrated, giving up, and the people who are still apathetic. How do we keep people energized and motivated? Because I know that's part of what you've been doing your whole life.
I have traveled to many countries, many different countries. I actually lived in New Zealand. I'm an avid trout fisherman too. I love it. But that's a socialist country. They just got all their guns taken away. Okay, you had, and I still think that was a setup of what happened in New Zealand. But the government said, turn your guns in, and the people did. And here you go. That's going to save everything. And now they're now slaves to their government, just like Australia did. But one of the places I used to travel to was Venezuela. Very beautiful country back in the 1980s when I went there multiple times. And so what do I tell for people that are apathy? Can I buy a ticket? I'll give you a 1-week trip to Venezuela. How would you just like to spend some time in Venezuela and see how those people are living? Those people, Venezuelan people that I met are smart, intelligent people. And you saw what happened in just a matter of a decade to that country. And I see that happening here. So all I can say is get educated and use common sense to guide you. See what's going on in other parts of the world. You've got Germany, where my ancestors come from. That lady's been in power and power and power and power. How does she stay in power? She's the most moronic person in the world. And I just think those elections are rigged. I say we got to stand. The stand is now. If you don't stand, if we get Biden that goes in and I don't know, it's 50-50 shot right now, he gets in, he's not running the country. The guy can't even walk. He's already in a cast, okay? He can't even walk. He's already in a cast.
Supposedly from playing with his dog.
Yeah.
He might have sniffed the wrong hair.
Come on, he walks up
Kamala
and down that
may have stomped that foot.
Walks up and down that basement all the time, so don't give me a dog story. But he's not going to be running the country, okay? He's not, all right? There are actors behind that. So, but getting back is you got to look in the mirror and say, if it's to be, it's up to me, okay? You got to take that. And as we take self-responsibility for this country that our forefathers fought so hard for us to have, and they sacrificed so much, that we have got to do it individually, and from individuality it will spread outward.
Yeah, well, that, one of the things, Sig, that really troubles me, going back to like the COVID-19 deal of Corona, however you want, and I'm not downplaying the virus. I'm not saying don't be safe. It's real. How it could be a pandemic, like a lot of my listeners say. I don't dispute that. But the thing that really troubled me was how quickly we let these little Napoleons, I call them, governors and whatnot, your former home state, I mean, it's just wacko out there. But these governors and these mayors, like here locally, became little Napoleons overnight. And who gave them the right to take our freedom away? Because I maintain, Sig, that, getting out of the cave has never been safe. It's an illusion. To think that we're facing something now that former generations didn't face. I mean, believe me, you have a whole lot better chance of surviving, let alone catching COVID-19 than when our boys stormed the beaches of Normandy to defeat the Germans over there. They were pretty much guaranteed to die going into that.
Absolutely.
So this idea that we're facing some kind of unique, special challenge that we need to hide in the corner from really troubles me. And I don't know if you saw, I've played this, I'm not going to play a video now, but I played this video many times of the governor of New Jersey on one of the Fox shows, and he was talking about Tucker Carlson, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Tucker Carlson was asking him about the Bill of Rights. What gave you the Bill of Rights?
Yeah.
And he literally chuckled and said, well, I wasn't even thinking about the Bill of Rights, Tucker. And so, comment on that, if you will, about, because California coming from there, you've basically got a Napoleon and Gavin Newsom, Whitmer in Michigan. The list is growing every day. And even some Republicans are falling prey to this. But this idea that we have to fear, we have to live in fear, terrifies me, actually, to put it bluntly.
Ask the frontiersman who plowed through and said, I can't do nothing. He had to go out and work, and if he didn't bring home the food for the family, they didn't eat. And we're just so comfortable here, and it's easy to whine and complain. But something that changed my life and my mentor some 28 years ago when I was 30, he said, Sig, for things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better. You are who you are because you choose to be that way. And that hit me. And that's where self-responsibility, I think, really kicked in for me, because I was whining and complaining about everything I could in life. And again, it gets back to that self-responsibility. That's why I tell people, they say, what jobs have you had? I've never had a job in my life. I went to college. I interviewed with people, but I just...
Are y'all listening to this? A man who's never had a job and traveled the world. He got a haircut and get a real job, right? No, but he'll tell you about it. That's one of the things that impresses me, Sig, about you. He literally has been a true self-made man because he's leaned on people. The people say, I don't need any help from anybody. Well, that's probably the guy digging in the ditch. The guy that does what Sig did, rugged individual, but yet had mentors and people and was teachable.
Yes.
So go ahead and expand on that.
I think, teachable is a great word. You got to be teachable. You got, I had to learn to become very humble, and at that time I was kind of still a heathen. I am now a Christian, and I just, if there's something scripturally I can give, it's Mark 4, and that's that's probably the most important parable that Jesus ever said. If you read Mark 4, you'll see what I'm talking about. So I strongly recommend that. But I think what happened was, and I should have said this first, so let me back up a little bit and say, it wasn't until I looked up at the Lord and said, you know what, God, it ain't working the way I'm doing it. Maybe I should just do it your way. And it's almost like it was a breath of fresh air came and hit me in the face, and the Lord said, you know what, I've been waiting for you to say that. And from there, things started to change where my mentor came in. I had multiple mentors along the way, and I just thank the Lord for putting those people in my life. And if there's no one in your life right now that you can look up to, you have this show, John, which is a phenomenal show. There's people that I haven't met that are my mentor. Donald J. Trump is one of my mentors. Now you're saying, oh, how is that possible? I've read his books. I've read his books before he became announced he's going to become a president, and thus I do real estate. I'm a real estate investor, okay? And I read his books and almost felt like I had this connection with President Trump before he even became announced president. It's great. So if you want to go and say, you know, President Trump's my mentor. Well, how, you know him? Well, yeah, I know him through his books because you get the knowledge, you get to know the man. So I knew the man before he even announced that he's a good man.
That kind of reminds me of something I'd say on the show a lot, that, you know, when you want to, if you're trying to figure someone out, you got to kind of figure something core about them that drives them, and it kind of explains their decisions. And I've never met President Trump other than been to rallies, of course, but I feel like that President Trump is a businessman at heart. And he's about making money. And I don't think there's anything negative about that. So to understand President Trump and his politics, if you will, this is how I see it. He's about making money, and he wants you to make money. And he feels like that if you have money in your pocket and you're comfortable, you have money to do the things you need to do, you can figure everything else out on your own. You know, who to sleep with, what church to go to, whether to go or not go, you know, what job to get or not take. You can figure all of that out on your own if you've got the wherewithal to do it. And so that, I don't know how you feel about it, but to me, that explains President Trump. When they start calling him racist and all that, that's not, it's total bogus. President Trump has done more for the economy, at least he did before all this pandemic. So I don't know if you agree with me, but I feel like he thinks of things from a business perspective. If you got money, like I say, change you can spend instead of what Obama said, but change you can actually spend. You are empowered, and the Constitution, I think, backs me up. You can be whatever you want to be and make your own decisions instead of just being asleep at the switch, like what I think government, what we might be returning to.
Absolutely. No, don't ever let anyone tell you money is bad, okay? If you've got money, just think of the people that you can help with that money. If you're successful, you start a business and you hire 3 people, you're helping 3 people out with their families, okay? You're actually doing good out there. So, and that's one of the things that I always wanted to do is how much can I help people? You know, J. Paul Getty said, I'd rather put 1%. Instead of putting 100% into something, I want to have 100 people do 1%. Okay, everybody benefits in a society. That's the reason we left England, and I'm going back a few centuries here. All right, that's the reason. We need to be more like Norway. What is Norway? Did Norway create Apple computers? No. Did Norway create cars? No. This country, when you take the chains off and you let the entrepreneurs do it, the rugged individualists go crazy, we're going to create. And boy, everybody benefits from that.
Yeah, I've actually, you talked about New Zealand. I've got a friend that I've interviewed in the past, Trevor Loudon. I don't know if you know him or not. He's very conservative, and he writes about all kind of things that are actually, he could explain in great detail what's happening in our country. But one of the things he says about, and I haven't talked to him since what happened in New Zealand, what you talked about.
Yes.
He's got to be heartbroken. He's living in Florida now as well. So howdy, Trevor, if you're listening. But he basically says, and you mentioned Norway, that he realizes at a very early age that if it weren't for America, there would be no New Zealand in a sense, because the Japanese would have taken it over. There would be no Norway because the Nazis would have taken it over. They were heavy in there. So a lot of people have forgotten. That's why we got to battle ignorance and apathy on my show every day. They've forgotten that without this light, and it is sometimes just a flicker in the darkness, but lights can be bright, that without the United States of America, there is no freedom.
No, there's
anywhere.
no freedom. If you want to predict the future, look at history. And I brought up Venezuela as a great example. But you're absolutely right. The Norwegians, the Swedish rolled over on the Nazis. Okay, they let them in. The Norwegians fought, and we have to fight too. We have to fight. And you're right. there's people dying to get in this country. There's not people dying to get out of this country. They're dying to get into this country to get a piece of what you and I take for granted. I'm not going to let my forefathers down at all.
Yeah, you mentioned, because I was looking at your website, and by the way, it's very simple, sigtaylor.com, right?
Yes, absolutely. And Sig is spelled a few different ways, but it's S-I-E-G, Taylor, T-A-Y-L-O-R. And also, I just recently started Fish Out Loud, which I'm a fishing enthusiast like you. YouTube, and now on Rumble. I'm going to be putting more on Rumble.
And we're on Rumble, by the way, as well now. So
Yes.
we're getting more. But when I was looking at your website, and you just mentioned Mr. Getty, the first billionaire, by the way.
Yes, the first
And
billionaire.
by the way, if you haven't noticed, the first African-American billionaire, Mr. Bob Johnson, that founded BET, and a diehard Democrat, about a year ago, he said that President Trump, with his economy, was bringing light. And he was talking about economic light into places that had been dark and not seen it. So when you start talking about President Trump being a racist, listen to what Bob Johnson said, that President Trump was actually bringing that money into those communities. Who knows what's going to happen? But back to Mr. Getty, I want to quote something that you had on your website, because I want to put a little political spin on it. That's what I do. But he said, I would rather have 1%, and you kind of mentioned this, of the effort of 100 men than 100% of my own effort. And what I want to put this political spin on it is because, kind of going back to what we were talking about before, you know, President Trump has said that he is the head of a movement, that it is not just him. And let's face the facts. God help us if he doesn't overcome these cheating and shenanigans in this election. And maybe he, you know, if he doesn't, maybe he comes back in 2020, 24. But it could never be about one person, as great as that person is, because Getty said it well here. He'd rather have 1% of 100 people than 100% of one man. He's talking about himself. And we need to do that politically. If we're truly going to be a movement, if we're truly going to make America great again and put America first, I believe that we, the American people, the Trump supporters, those of you who have been sitting on the sideline, got to get in the fight, because we need that 1% at least, bare minimum, because there's no way that we can do it alone. President Trump can never do it alone. People like Sig and myself, we're fighters. We need you, by the way, to support fighters. So support what Sig is doing, support what I'm doing here, support Big Daddy Unlimited, our sponsor, because as I always say, Sig, not everybody can be a fighter, but everybody can support those in the fight. And so that 1% thing he's talking about is what we've got to have if we're going to save this nation, I believe.
Absolutely. And, you know, again, it's got to start from here, the heart. And one of the things, when I first became a Christian, you know, I'm all excited. I want everybody to come to Jesus because, you know, I want to go celebrate, you know. But I used to say sometimes the wrong things. I used to say, hey, oh, you don't believe in God? Well, go to hell. I don't care. I've changed it up a little bit, gotten a little wiser, a little older. And instead of saying that, I just look at them and they say they don't believe in God. And I say, let me ask you a question. And they'll say, yeah, what? Have you ever been wrong before? And then I turn around and walk away. And what I'm saying is that those of you who say, you know, what can I do? What can I do? If you know somebody in Georgia, don't hit them over the head and say they're going to hell. But let them say, have you ever been wrong before? Okay, we need that Senate. We need that Senate. They've already said what they're going to do. Have you seen the comment where Schumer says, we take Georgia, we change America?
Yeah, he said the world, I think.
Oh,
then somebody reminded him he didn't have a mask on, so then
Oh,
he
and then he
puts the
puts his
mask
mask
on
on.
and said, we take Georgia and we change America.
Change America.
Oh, yeah, we've played that before.
You know what?
Chucky in charge.
I don't
Boy,
want to
God help us.
fundamentally change America. America is okay the way it is. Okay, I like the freedom. So we all have that freedom. So there's a little something everyone can do. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. My kids sometimes remind me on that because I told them that as they're raising up, as I'm raising them up. So anyway.
Yeah, you have a quote from Zig Ziglar here, because I'm going to read it in just a moment. But you talked about prayer, and, you know, I've shared this with my listeners. If you're new to the show, first, howdy, how are you? In the right place now. The truth, as they say, starts here. But, you know, God doesn't have to have complicated prayers. The prayer that changed my life, and I've told my listeners this before, I was sitting in a jail cell because I was struggling with cocaine addiction and everything else and got arrested. I've been clean and sober now for like 32 years, but I didn't pray, Lord, get me off this, help, because it never seemed to work. But I said a sincere prayer because not only did I not like where I was, obviously, but what really scared me was the things I was in my mind capable of. So I said a prayer, and I get emotional every time I think about it. I said, Lord, I don't want to be the man that I am becoming. Help me be a better person. And with that, this quote from Zig Ziglar kind of stood out to me because it says, you will get in life all you want if you help enough other people get what they want. So my simple prayer, pretty much I say all the time when I got to get my head back right, is Lord, help me so that I can help others.
Absolutely.
That's about as simple, but it's sincere and it works.
And it's really interesting, if I could add to that, is, well, what can I do? You may be asking yourself, do the little things, okay? Start little. Take the little bites. Don't take a big bite and say, I just, took my $1,000 I had been saving for a year and donated it to something. No, do the little things. Help the lady that's coming out of the grocery store who needs some assistance. Do the little things. God will eventually give you a big one to do, but you got to start little. Every businessman starts little. They don't just start successful. It takes a while, fine tuning. So give yourself a break, do the little things, and absolutely.
When you mentioned the shopping thing, one of the things I made a decision a few years ago, because to me the world just seems to be getting ruder by the minute.
Absolutely.
So I made a decision not to add to it if I can help it.
Absolutely.
So if you're looking for somebody to butt in line at the Walmart, I'm your guy, because I'll probably say, in traffic the same way, I'll let you go, all that kind of thing, because it made my life a whole lot happier. So if you don't get anything outside the show, I tell you this, don't add to the rudeness. There's enough of those people already.
And if they are rude, what happened that morning? Did their husband yell at them? Did their wife yell at the husband? They're going through some adversity. I have actually gone out of my way to actually, back before the pandemic here, but hug somebody. Just boom. And that person breaks down in tears. And I don't know if it's just again, I've been working at this for years, just a thing that I just said, hey, you need a hug. And bam, and it just breaks down in tears and say, thank you, I needed that. So do the little things because God has big plans for you.
Well, I want to talk a little bit, we're getting close to the end of the show, but I want to talk a little bit because you mentioned about making money is not a bad thing. One of the things I tell people all the time is money just reveals who you really are. If you're a-hole, you can be a bigger one with money. But if you're a loving, caring person, you can be more loving, more caring, and more giving. So we're going to talk a little bit here about different ways to make money. Sig has done a lot. I mean, he's kind of a pioneer in marketing. He's a pioneer in social media and all of that stuff. So I want to talk about what you're doing now with Fishing Out Loud, Guns Out Loud, and if you could combine that with the current challenges conservatives like us are having with social media. Could you kind of shake all that up and spit it out there?
Yes. By the way, I believe social media is a very positive influence. Is there negative in there? I think so too. But I watched a great YouTube video the other day, and it was talking about side hustles. And the gentleman said something really simple. There's opportunity everywhere, okay? You just got to keep at it. Just got to keep at it. It's not going to happen overnight, okay? So if you have a dream, and I'm big on dreams, I wanted to be a professional bass fisherman. I can't tell you how many people laughed at me, but I became a professional bass fisherman, okay?
Won tournaments. He's won tournaments.
I did, but just didn't want to win tournaments. I wanted to break all-time records. I'm dreaming every time I make that cast, I'm going to catch a monster fish, and I did. And in 2005, I broke, and I still hold to this day, the FLW. I was the first FLW pro to ever go wire to wire, which means I led every day for 4 days. It was a 16 fish limit. I still have the record. for 95 pounds, 16 fish bass. And I'm not saying that to impress you, but to impress upon you that dreams do come true. But my number one dream was always to raise a family, stay home with my wife, and we did that. My kids are now, one is at FSU. Sorry, you Gator fans. Okay. But FSU, the other one is wants to join the Coast Guard, and he's now. So with that being said, I started Fish Out Loud because my heart is in fishing. I want to teach people how to catch more and bigger fish. My motto is you're always just one cast away, and that is about everything in life. You have a business. You start out with a business. You want to do a lawn service, and it doesn't go that way. It turns into actually you're making deliveries. You're picking up things. It changes. It's okay. You started out the lawn, but you did here. Okay. I started out just kind of fun fishing, and I went to become a professional. Life just kind of follow where it takes you, as long as it takes you towards that dream even closer. So, and I decided I am a big, if you read the First Amendment and you read the Second Amendment, to me, it's clear as black and white. How people get disoriented, like, well, it was meant for hunting only, and no, it wasn't. It was meant the guns for Second Amendment against tyranny. But the First Amendment is very clear. You should be able to go to church. If they're going to keep Walmarts open, you should be able to go to your church.
They're keeping liquor stores open.
It's unbelievable. Well, that again, now we're talking Satan here, out to kill, steal, and destroy. But so here's the thing. I'm just starting officially today, Guns Out Loud, and that's why I'm here. And Fish Out Loud to help you catch bigger fish. You can find me on YouTube. I'm just now getting onto Rumble, okay? And I have other businesses that I do consulting. I help businesses with their problems. And it's as simple as, I'm not one of those that will be a consultant forever with a company, because I go in there, I take a look, and first thing I say to the person in charge, do you want to hear the truth, or do you want to just hear something? Because I'm not here to tell you just something. I'm here to tell you the truth. And if you don't take my implementations and implement them, it's no sense of just giving me a bunch of money.
So probably the easiest way, if you can't remember all that, is to remember Sig, S-I-E-G, Sig, Taylor.com, and he's got links to all of this at the website,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
Fishing Out Loud and everything else.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed the show today. I got a little surprise for Sig. I did not give him, it can't be all softball, right? So I went to his website and I took some pictures, championship pictures. So we're going to show a series of them right now. There's Sig. I mean, he's got two nice fish. I love the shirt. Keep going. Billy Bob is there. There's another. Billy Bob's in control of this. He's going to get you back here. And see, there's another one. He's fishing all over the world. Look at that. I love the shirt again. Look, see the size of that fish he's holding up? I mean, that's a nice one, all right. That's a nice one. Now we're going to show you a few pictures of me. There you go, right there. That's about an 80-pound amberjack.
That's a monster.
That's when I won all 3 jackpots.
That's great. Oh my
Hey, keep on going. That's just a little like 32-pound grouper I caught.
Oh, wow.
And then I think I got one more. That's a 42-pound one I caught about a month ago.
We're going fishing.
Yeah.
I like that.
So when he catches that one that you show him hold up, we need to catch a bunch of them, put them on the line, and get one of them ones like that.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I look forward to fishing with you and growing this patriotic, because this thing really, ladies and gentlemen, it has become down to tyranny versus freedom. That is literally where we are in the nation right now. So don't give up. Get motivated, get activated, get involved. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Thank you, Sig, for being on here.
John, thank you. You're a great American.
See, we can do that right here.
Great American right there.
Check us out on our various channels. We'll get more into that at another time. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for this great nation and our president, because both of them have earned that right. But like I say each and every day, and I mean this for you too, Sig, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.